Wonderful. All right. Good morning, everybody. I guess good afternoon as well. I'm on the West Coast today, so I'm still in morning time, but so happy to have you be joining us. We are excited to be here. I'm Stephanie Gary with Cultivate Advisors. We are a small business advising firm, and we've partnered with HAYVN Co-working in Connecticut for a couple training events over the years, and excited to be back with this topic today, which seemed kind of relevant. I know I've been struggling with some time management just in the new year, getting on top and staying on top of my to-do list. So we've got one of our business advisors, Angi Semler Welch, that is going to walk us through some productivity hacks. And I will kick it over to her to jump in and take it away, Angi.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Or sorry, good afternoon. I'm on the East Coast. I haven't made that switch yet. I'm glad you took time out of your schedule today. I know in the hustle and bustle of running a business, it can be really, really challenging to take time out, especially in the middle of the day, to learn and educate yourself and try to put into place some better work habits. But my goal is for you to get to the other side of this the next 40 minutes or so and be really, really glad that you carved out the time to be here today. So give me just 1 second here to share the right thing. There we go. And we are going to get started. So our time together today, we are going to look at, sorry, I'm trying to get the video in the right place. So I can see some faces here. There we go. We're going to talk about managing priorities and effective time hacks. As Stephanie said, I am a business advisor. I'm also a cohort leader, which means I lead other advisors. And what we do is work with our clients to help them create sustainable, financially healthy businesses that they can either grow and scale, or they can choose to have the work-life balance that they want in more of a lifestyle company. So the work that we do is not about trying to get you to grow as big as you can, as fast as you can, and work 80 hours a week. It's really about how do we propel you forward and help you create the business that you've always dreamed of. And that might sound a little foo-foo when you start thinking about dream of, but it really is about how do we pair your industry expertise with the fundamentals of running a good business, financials, sales and marketing, recruiting and leadership, and then of course what we're here to talk about today, which is productivity, priority management, and to some element time management, but I feel like time management really gets overused. So let's think about priorities today and how to be really effective with the time that we all have. So in running a business, as the owner, I imagine many of you wear all of these hats or some of these hats, and it can end up feeling very, very exhausting. Is there anybody else that would agree with that?
100%.
Well, my goal here today is to equip you with some techniques and some practices where you can really feel like you are the owner, you are the CEO, and you have all your hats in a row, if you will. So instead of ducks, we're going to use hats. What we're going to look at today is, what is priority management? What are the big three concepts, rules, guidelines, principles, whatever you want to call them, that you must know and always keep coming back to? And then we're going to look at some simple and effective time hacks. But before I jump into any more of that, I'd love to hear from you. What are you hoping to learn here today, and why did you join? Why are you taking time out of your day to be here with us? Go ahead and put it in the chat.
Or if anyone wants to come off mute and just share if that's quicker.
Yep. Anybody?
I know I mentioned earlier, but I'm struggling with my to-do list and prioritizing that. And I feel like I spend time on the wrong things. So yeah, just always looking for new tips and hacks on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's very common. Katerina, I see balancing strategies. Can you come off mute and just tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. So just kind of like tips on like how much, I don't know if there is anything like a rule of thumb on like how much time per week or per month to spend on, I don't know, uh, looking at your technology, how much time to spend on networking, or, you know, just
Okay.
like prioritizing one of
Mhm.
those hats and
Okay.
coming up with a good balance on
Okay.
like how to not, you know, not let one take over everything else.
Sure. Sure. For sure. I'm gonna walk you through some strategies that I think will help with that. And it's not going to be as specific to technology versus business development, but it will be more in pursuit of your goal. So we'll go through that, and then when we get to the end, if you still have some questions around that, obviously feel free to ask specifically. And I'm sure Stephanie will share some information here at the end on how to reach out to us to get some more time where you can really get some guidance to work through the specifics of all of that. Is there anybody else that wants to share before we continue on? All right. Well, what I would want to just have everybody keep in mind is that if you are new to priority management, you're new to some of the strategies that we're going to talk about today, this is a graduated learning exercise. So my goal is to not take you from beginner to expert, or even middle of the road here to expert. It's really to help move you 1 or 2 steps forward. And if you were to change 2 things today, or coming out of today, that would make you 10% more productive, you can pick up a month's worth of time. So it's not going to take a lot. You don't have to become a master at all of these things to make a significant stride and difference in your day-to-day, in your week. And with that, I'm also going to challenge you to be like a lobster today. And you're in the Northeast, a lot of you are in the Northeast, so you probably, yeah, I don't want to say eat lobsters, because I know we have some vegans and vegetarians in the group today, but you're probably familiar with lobsters. And you may already know this, that in order to grow, lobsters have to become really, really uncomfortable, because they actually have to break their shell. So what I'm asking all of you today is to be okay getting uncomfortable, to think in ways that you haven't before, in order to break your shell and be able to grow and transform as a business owner. It's going to feel uncomfortable, it's going to feel awkward, and it's going to take time. But if you keep pushing and you keep getting a little bit better with each iteration, you will come out the other side with the shiny new red shell, just like a lobster does. All right. I need more audience participation here. What is priority management? Can come off chat or come off mute, or put it in the chat. Very quiet group today. Managing what you need to do first. That's part of it. Anybody else want to chime in? First, second, and third. All right. Priority management is focusing the time and resources that we have on work, project, and tasks that have a high impact toward our long-term goals. And that's the key. It's understanding where you're trying to go, or what is important to you in pursuit of your long-term goals. So maximizing your impact with the time you have. Does anybody want to comment on why this is important? All right. Exactly, Stephanie, thank you. Limited time in the day. Time is the one thing that we all have the exact same amount of. And if you prioritize correctly, prioritizing and managing your priorities allows you to accomplish more within the constraints of time. And it often frees up your work time, and it gives you more time to work outside of work, to be with your family, your friends, pursuing hobbies, and it frees up your headspace. which then in turn gives you more energy because you're not exhausting yourself worrying about all the things that you have to do. It allows you to be a more effective business owner and leader, and puts you in the right mode to scale. So if you have a business where you really want to be able to bring in more people, you don't want to be wearing all those hats, priority management is going to be one of the keys for you to master in order to be able to do that effectively. So what I would love to hear from you now, and you can again put it in the chat, are you reactive? Do you feel like you're constantly putting out fires, always running to the problem and trying to keep up? Are you constantly thinking about what's coming next and you're trying to prevent problems, which often leads to analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis? Or do you really feel like you're proactive? You're in front of it, you know what's going to happen, you always have control over your calendar. Go ahead and take a minute and weigh in here on the poll. Okay, Chris says, I can relate. I have a list of things to do, but spend a day doing just one thing. Chris, that's not a bad thing if it's in pursuit of your goal, and we'll get to that. If it's one thing that has absolutely no impact on what you're trying to accomplish, then we might need to rearrange that a little bit. See, tough to balance putting out fires with long-term goals, especially with scarce resources. Yes, absolutely, Virginia. Absolutely. All right, so from our poll, I see we have 75% of those who weighing in are reactive, and we have 25% in preventative. So and none of these are wrong. It's just recognizing where you are today in your entrepreneurial journey. So I ask you to just kind of remember this as we go forward and think about what you can do to move one step closer to that proactive mode where you really you can see around the corner, you know what to expect, and you don't have fires to put out because you've anticipated those and you've effectively prevented them from even getting started. And that may seem a long way from where you are today, but again, remember those 1 or 2 steps in the right direction will have a huge difference on your week and your month. Should I share these results, Stephanie? Can you guys see them right now? Or, okay.
Yeah, we'll just keep going.
All right. Okay. All right. And Chris, this slide may speak to what you had shared in the chat. Many of us mistake movement or activity for achievement. We find comfort in staying busy, even though a lot of times we don't know why we're doing it. We know we shouldn't be doing it, but we're just in the habit of it. So it's hard to separate and say, you know what, I'm going to draw a line in the sand here, and I'm not going to do this anymore. So when you think about your own schedule, what happens as you look at your calendar or your task list each day? Are you just doing stuff because you think you need to, or is there a purpose behind it? Do you know why you have to do it? Does it connect to the end goal, or are you just really busy working on a lot of things that you're not quite sure what the purpose is? And as I say that, are there 1 or 2 things that come to mind for you that you're doing that you don't need to be doing or don't want to be doing? And if so, make a note of that for yourselves. All right, we're going to move now into the big 3. These are 3 things that you have to know at all times if you're going to properly manage your priorities, effectively manage, I should say. Number 1 is, why do I do this? Why are you an entrepreneur? Why did you start on this journey? What gets you out of bed every day? And most importantly, what are you working toward? What is your end goal? And I'm going to just kind of stop there for a moment and ask you, why is this important? Does anybody want to share why it's important to know where you're going? It's because being an entrepreneur often looks and feels like this, that roller coaster ride, or like this. You wake up every day and you feel like you're rolling a massive boulder up a very, very big hill. And Felicia's weighing in. If you don't know where you were going, how can you know when you get there? Or how can you know how to get there, right? If you know your why and what you're trying to get to, knowing your why will help you get clear on what you need to be doing to get there. It will help you push through the obstacles and the roadblocks and the down part of the roller coaster that comes with being an entrepreneur. And it will help you stay focused on the end goal in the heat of the moment. And here's the thing that, a couple of things I want you all to remember. If you have aspirations to grow and scale and really have an impact with your business, you cannot lose focus on what's at the top. Not monthly, not weekly, not daily. Every day you get up, you have to be clear on where you're trying to get to. And without that, priority management is going to be impossible, because you can't prioritize what's important if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're really struggling with this, like, what am I driving toward? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to accomplish? This is your takeaway today. This is what I want you to really spend a lot of time and get really clear on. Why and what are you driving toward? The next of the big three is, what is the value of my time? How do you know what you should and shouldn't be doing? And this is one of my favorite topics, but because it's something that we don't think about until it's really put in front of us. Excuse me 1 second here. One of the things that I see as an advisor is that I have a lot of clients, and I talk to a lot of business owners who are effectively open 24 hours a day. And this was true prior to COVID, but now that so many of us are remote and we have our computers, our offices in our houses, and we're connected by our cell phones and technology, I think it's gotten even worse. If you are set up where you're working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you don't have clearly defined time when you're off, it's not sustainable. It is going to be really, really hard for you to grow your business past yourself, because it's important for you as the leader, the entrepreneur, the CEO, to put some sort of a normal calendar in place and protect those boundaries. Imagine if you're like the king or queen of your calendar, your castle. You have to define what is yours and when you will let people in and when you will not. And I promise you, you can successfully put those boundaries in place and run a healthy, growing business. It is something that we advocate for at Cultivate, something we work with our clients on, and we have a lot of them who are more successful now and working less. So I promise you it is possible. It's not about working 80 hours a week or even 60 hours a week. So if you do not currently have working hours written down, or even better, blocked off or locked into your calendar, that is the first thing I want you to do coming out of today. Because if you don't block that off, those boundaries are they're never going to be there. And I will just share a very simple example from my own experience. When I had my business, I had these notions every summer of taking Friday afternoons off to go get my daughter out of pre-K or daycare early and spend some time with her. And I didn't block it off. So guess what would happen? Every Friday would come and go, and I'd be finishing work at 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Last year, I set the same goal, and I was here at Cultivate, so I now have the more discipline and more techniques for doing this. And sorry, my hair keeps getting caught in my earbuds. I said I want to take 2 Fridays a month, all completely off, so I have a 3-day weekend, because that's what I needed to be able to rejuvenate, get the things done at home that needed to be done, and still feel like I had a weekend off. And I blocked it off on my calendar, and just that simple, very, very simple act of doing that caused me to like pause and think anytime I was tempted to add something to that calendar. because that was my reminder, my visual reminder that, no, this is important to you. Whatever you're trying to schedule right now, fit it into another time. And beyond that, I see Katerina, interior designer. Yes, you are in a very tough industry because your clients probably want to talk to you on evenings and weekends. So how do you build your business and create those boundaries? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So again, I want you to think about your own, what makes sense for you, what is right for you, and start to put those boundaries in place. And people, generally speaking, will respect you. And there's a right way, of course, to say these, you know, these are my working hours. Here's how I can help you within this time frame. But do not feel like you have to be open 24/7 to run a successful business. And this next one I think is really important too. And we hear a lot about it, but the reality is, I mean, it's true. When we get busy, a lot of us sacrifice sleep. We sacrifice our downtime, our exercise, proper nutrition, vacation time. All of this is important for us to be able to show up in the way that we need to show up to do the work that we do. Sleep is certainly at the core of that, but I don't want to downplay the importance of time off, like true time away from the computer, away from the phone, away from your to-do list, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit too. When you get enough sleep, you will find yourself performing much, much better. And the more you perform, or the better you perform, the more energy you'll have to do even more, because it's a what's that called? You're building up momentum, and that momentum feeds itself. This next one is my favorite part of what is your time worth? If you think about what you're trying to earn this year, this is like your actual earnings, and this is a conservative. We're going to go on the next slide to another extreme. But have you ever thought about what you need to be doing every month to get to 50K, or every week, or every hour? So every hour that your computer, or you're talking to a client, or you're going to a networking meeting, are you thinking about, did I do enough this hour to be able to pay myself that $20 that I need to pay myself in pursuit of the 50K this year? And another way to think about this is, if you are in a profession where, and this is, I should say this, there's another way to think about it that's important, but it's easier if you're in a profession where you bill clients per hour. So Katerina, interior design, marketing services should have an hourly rate assigned, even if you bill like per project or flat fee. Attorneys, architects, if you have a posted rate, let's just say your posted bill rate is $150, you do not want to be doing anything that you could pay somebody less than that to do. So for example, if your billable rate is $150 an hour, and you're spending 3 or 4 hours a day or a week doing social media, or you're doing 3 or 4 hours of bookkeeping a month, think about the effectiveness of your time. You can more effectively delegate that, hire somebody else to do it, so that you can stay on what is important, which is driving revenue. And another thing that I tell my clients a lot is, in your business, you should be doing the things that only you can do, and you should be trying to delegate, automate, or outsource everything else. Here's another way to look at this. If we want to, if we want to look at it from a revenue standpoint, if you're driving toward $1 million, how much revenue do you need to generate every minute, every hour, every week, every month? And this can also be where that social media example comes into play. If you're going to spend 4 hours writing a really great blog post and creating all these social media posts, and you're the one doing it, but yet you're also the one person who goes and generates sales, what do you think the value of those 4 hours are? Is it better spent going and trying and working on your sales pipeline, or closing a sale, or following up with a prospect? Or is it writing social media posts? All right. One other example I want to give you too, if you have a leadership team, or as you grow and add leaders, some business owners and some businesses really, really like to have meetings, and they like to have everybody in the meetings because they want to rule collaboratively and democratically. And I don't want to weigh in on that right now, but what I want you to think about is, what is the value of your time? What is the value of the time of everybody in that meeting? And what do you need to actually produce or accomplish in that meeting in order for it to be worth the time that it took all of you to come together? And is that worth it? Is it the amount of time? Is it the people in it? Are we actually being productive? Or are we having meetings just because we think we need to have meetings? Sorry. Let's go on to our next poll. Are you operating at your weekly value? Put a 1 in the chat if you're nowhere near it. You need to make big changes. 2 is kind of, but I still need to do some work. 3 is I'm close, but I'm inconsistent. And 4 is I hit that value every week. If you can just take a moment and drop a number in the chat, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Can you go through them one more time, Angie?
Sure. Number 1 is I'm nowhere near it. I need to make some big changes. 2 is I need to work on this. I hit it sometimes, but not always. Yeah, 2 and 3 are pretty close. 3 is I hit it more weeks than I don't, but I'm still inconsistent. And 4 is I hit that value every week. So you see a couple 2s, okay. Anybody else? All right, so some work to be done here. Did those examples help you get a little bit more clear though on how to value your time and how to look at it in terms of what to be working on and what not to be working on? I see a couple of nods. Okay, if you have any questions on that, happy to talk about that here at the end. All right, number 3 is, what are my priorities? Now, this is obviously why we're all here. As entrepreneurs, you could choose to do anything, could choose to do nothing, or you could choose wisely. But if you don't know what to choose, it just becomes chaotic, and that's where most of us end up, where we are in that reactive mode. We have this long to-do list, and we're just trying to check off as many boxes as we can every single day. But yet, at the end of the week, the month, the year, we may not have anything to show for it. So here's how I want you to start to shift your perspective on things. Has anybody seen this game before at a carnival or a fair, where you have to squirt the water in the hole and things go around and you're competing with other players? And the goal is to whoever gets the most water in and fills up the tank behind here first, they win. What if we made a bet and I said, I would give you your 2022 goal compensation if you can get all of these spray jets full or completed in a set amount of time? How would you go about it? I imagine you wouldn't do squirt a little bit into number 1, a little bit into number 2, maybe jump down to number 6 and then come back to 1, right? But think about the way that you attack your work and your priorities. A lot of us, and I'm guilty of this too, we jump from one thing to the next because we haven't taken the time to focus on what is going to give us the biggest lift. Let's solve this now before we go on to the next thing. So the way that I would approach this game and recommend you do this in your business is to focus on, okay, here's 1 and 2. Let's sit down. Let's pick up 2 guns and fire completely at 1 and 2 until they're full. Then we move down 2 seats, fill up the next 2. So you're taking on bigger tasks, a bigger task in pursuit of the goal. You're knocking that off your list, knocking that off the things that are really important to the business before you go on to the next. You're not trying to tackle 8 things at once. So when you are reactive, and I know a bunch of us here said today that we are, you're living in a reactive world. You pick your tasks by urgency. You're running to the next fire. You're constantly feeling behind and probably very tired. And I bet there are some days where it's hard to get motivated because you just feel like it's never enough. Whereas a proactive owner, if you're managing your time proactively, you pick by impact. You look at everything that's in front of you and you pick based on the value they have in pursuit of your goal. And in some cases, you're going to have to just be okay, like especially those of us that are control freaks or we're perfectionists. And if you're focused on 1 or 2 things that have a huge impact for you, huge value for you, you're going to have to be okay letting some other things go, or knowing that they're not going to be done the way that you do them, but they're done. And that is uncomfortable for a lot of us, but it's the only way you're going to be able to get to where you're trying to go. Otherwise, you're just going to constantly be managing fires and putting out fires. So one of the questions that we had early on was, how do I figure out what's important? And I know at a broader scale, we can say, well, look at the things you have to do and figure out what's going to help you get to your goals. Here's a little bit more of a tactical approach. And for those of you who are maybe not as new to priority management, this is maybe where you can pick up a couple of tips from today. There's a lot of different ways to prioritize and to rank your priorities and to rate and put them into some sort of order. This is the way that we go about it. So if you look at your tasks in terms of these quadrants: A, urgent and important; B, not urgent but important; C, urgent but not important; and D, not urgent and not important. And when I meet with owners, half of them or more are spending 50 to 60% of the time in C and D. It's that activity versus accomplishment. And the other 30 to 40% of their time is spent in A. Where we really want you to get to is B. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, but the point is, if we're trying to come in from a proactive place where we already know what's going to happen, we've planned for it, we've got it covered, very few things become urgent because we're already ahead of it. So we know it's important, we can work toward it. We don't have as many fires to put out because we've prevented them from ever getting started in the first place. So I want you to think about for yourself, what % of time do you feel you're working in A, B, C, or D? And you can put it in the chat or you can make a note of it. But I think it's important to just take a moment to reflect. And I also want to just remind you that urgent is not what you feel is urgent or what somebody else feels is urgent. It is what the business needs to hit the end goal. Yes, Virginia, if you are in B, that means you have the time and the space to plan, that you have done your best to look into the future and organize your day and your weeks around that. So you're not reactive. In B, you are proactive. Not to say that every day is an easy one and nothing bad ever happens or nothing surprising ever happens, but that is where you have the space and the freedom to grow because you're in control. So Stephanie, 20% in A, Elio, so you're similar to what we see.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, I'm gonna argue that not everything is important. I know it can seem that way, But if you're really clear on your goals, and I'll talk in a minute about how we can help you prioritize that a little bit, something has to go, or something has to be delegated or outsourced. You can't do it all. And I'd be happy to talk with you about that one-on-one, just to tailor it a little bit more to, to your specific situation. All right, so I see some C's in here. I see an A. And I want to be clear too, that we are trying to get to B. You're going to have some A, there's always going to be some C and D. You can't eliminate it all, but the closer we get to operating the majority in B, the more peaceful and smooth everything is going to seem. So here's a time hack for you, a little bit ahead of schedule. Take a screenshot of this, set this as your background, and revisit this every time you start a new task. And Jen, maybe this is something good for you. Not that it's not good for everybody, but specific to your point. Every time you start a task, ask yourself where that falls in the quadrant. And is that going to help you get to your goal, your weekly goal, your monthly goal, your end goal? And if anything is C or D, thank you, Virginia. If anything is C or D, try to delegate or eliminate it. You'll never, as I said, you won't get rid of it all, but it's really about being intentional and choosing what to work on. So for those of you who are looking for some more advanced recommendations, or you want me to get a little bit more in depth about, okay, I have all these tasks, all these things I have to do. How do I actually do this? The first thing I'm going to say is that you have to take time to plan what's important. And I know that probably sounds ludicrous to some of you. You're like, I don't have any time. How am I supposed to find more time? But if you think about it this way. If you were going to drive from New York to LA, would you just get in the car and start driving south and west? Or would you take the time to plug it into your GPS, or in the days before smartphones, would you get a map and create your route that is most direct? Which one of those is going to take you from New York to LA the fastest and most direct route? Is it driving randomly, or is it taking the time ahead of time to ensure you have the trip, to ensure you know which way you're trying to go? So here's one thing I want you to think about. Pick one of your goals, break it down. What do you have to do today, this week, this month to hit that goal? And you break down all the tasks that you have to do within that. And then I want you, and I do this in Excel, for those of you that like spreadsheets, I find it really easy to do in Excel, but whether you do it in Word or on a napkin, the point is break it down, write down all the tasks associated with that, and then write down everything else you have to do. Otherwise, it'll just get stuck in your head. So we want to get it all out of there. Now take your list and do your best to rank it according to this quadrant that we just looked at back here. And assign a time. How much time do you think each of those things is going to take you? And when this is new, I would say take the time you think it's going to be and then add 50% more or double it. And then add that up. This is why I do it in Excel. Add it up. How much time is that actually? I would bet for most of us the first time through, we're trying to do more, or our list will have us at some amount of time that we can't possibly work and that we don't want to work. So now go back through your list and think at it more critically. What are those boundaries? What are the hours that you are planning to work? And what can you reasonably accomplish within that? Try to delegate, eliminate, automate everything else. Kick it out. The things that are left, go now to your calendar and block off the time on your calendar to do those things. And this is how you start to get ahead of it, because you're looking at it in advance of, okay, now I have a basic understanding of how much time it's really going to take me to get all this done. and I understand why this is important, and I'm going to map it out like this. No, what I'm talking about is block scheduling. It is a whole, like, we could do a whole webinar just on that. So I'm just scratching the surface here. But again, if you need more tools and assistance around this, let me know. I think it's really, really effective. It takes time to master it, to get really good at it, but it will change your life. And once you start to do this, it's not a set it and forget it. You're going to have to revisit every day for 15 minutes or so, every week, 1 to 2 hours, and then every month for another 2 to 3 hours. And it's going to take you longer at the beginning, but the more you do it, the more you stick with it, the faster you'll get and the more effective you'll get. Give yourself big blocks of time to get things done and to make sure you're doing the planning. And at the end of each week, reflect back on how you did, because if there's something you underestimated or overestimated, you can adjust accordingly, and that will help you get better. All right, I know that was a lot. So again, Stephanie and I are here if you need any clarifications, but I want to move now into simple but effective time hacks, because we are coming to the top of the hour here pretty quickly. Number 1, say no. None of this works if you are quick to say yes. You are not to be any good for anybody else. Remove the to-do list. Throw it all away. Get rid of it. All it does is cloud your brain. It causes you stress, and it puts you in that position of constantly feeling like you're behind. There will always be something you're thinking about. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. Instead, this goes back to what we just kind of walked through at a high level. Map it all out. Put the time on your calendar so that when you come to work each day, you know, yes, I have a lot to accomplish, but I know why I'm doing it. I know there's high value in this, and I've mapped it all out on my calendar. So this ties to the next one too, which is do versus do. A lot of us, if we have a project, project due, a deadline, a speech, a presentation, we put that deadline on our calendar, but then we don't do the first piece of that, which is blocking out the time on our calendar to actually get done what is due. So I want you to start thinking about it in that in pursuit of block scheduling, in pursuit of, I have a big project. Let me make sure I put sections of time on my calendar so I can get this done in plenty of time before the due date, and I'm not scrambling at the last minute. Slush time. This is one of my favorites. If you think about a given day, how many days do we have where there's not a distraction or a disruption, or somebody wanting something, a client asking for something, somebody wanting a meeting or an email or a phone call? We all have that. And we allow it to disrupt what we're focused on. We might come to work and say, I'm going to work on these 3 things. We pick up the phone, we check our email, and all of a sudden our day is completely derailed. What I want you to start doing is building slush time into your calendar to set aside for these kinds of distractions and disruptions. If you want to work 50 hours a week, give yourself 8 to 10 hours of slush time. If you're working 40 hours a week, an hour, hour and a half a day. So that when those things come up, when those things do come up, you can communicate them. Somebody wants you to take a look at something. Wonderful. I will look at that this afternoon. I have time blocked off on my calendar to do that. Do you have time for a meeting? Do you have time for this? Yes, I have time this afternoon at 4 o'clock or tomorrow at 3. And if they push back, this is where you have to protect your time. I understand it's important to you. I have other things that are a priority to me, and I have set aside time to help you at this day and time. And people will respect that. There's always going to be the exception to the rule, but it's really important for you to protect what's important to you as well. Okay, so I want you to remember, today is the day to start the journey. If you make even some of these tweaks and shift even 10% of the time you're spending right now, You will be tremendously more productive. You'll be less stressed. And yes, you can get back a month's worth of time. It's going to take time to make the time. You likely won't get it 100% on the first pass, but keep at it. Remember the lobster. It will be uncomfortable. The more you do it, the better you will get at it. Keep pushing and you will come out on the other side, and you'll look back on the before you, the pre-you, and wonder how you managed for so long in that kind of reactive environment. I'm going to take some questions now, but I also, while we're doing that, I want to hear what your 1 to 2 key takeaways are today, or what are the 1 or 2 things you're going to do differently. And I see Felicia, what if you run a service desk? How do you handle this? Felicia, can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of Allie, who's on our community managers. So they have a long to-do list or long activities that they have to do, but their priority is to, if a client comes in to service what they need. So it's just kind of managing that. I've worked with them on just saying to put like a little sign up and, be there for an hour or 2, but then just, that it's okay to say that you are not available to help out for an hour or 2. But I think they need some help on that too.
Sure. And I think if I understand correctly, are they physically sitting at a desk and people are coming up to it? Okay. Mm-hmm. And is there anything truly urgent about the help that the customers or the clients coming in need?
Sometimes, yeah, like if the printer's not working and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So I think they just need to have some tools to manage this. Okay. I want them to be available, but sometimes people just are coming in to chit chat for because they're taking a break. So you want that, people to be there as the therapist for people who are taking a break too, but not all the time.
Well, and with community managers, if they're physically there, do they have a shift that starts and stops? Is there a clear starting point and end point to what they're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so you have that as well. It's not like they're available evenings and weekends when they're not even in the building.
Right.
Okay. So I think that in and of itself is one constraint, but then if there is a way to set aside or to set specific, I'm available for social hour, I'm available here to talk, as opposed to, okay, this is my time to put my head down and do my work. You may have to have somebody who you might have to have some guidelines around what is a true emergency or what is urgent that they can get disrupted for. But it sounds like just creating some guidelines and rules around that will go a long way.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions do we have? And I love to see some takeaways.
Angie, I have a question. Can you repeat, if you went over it already, in terms of that matrix of the 4 quadrants, what's an ideal sort of breakout in your opinion?
I think it's going to vary with your business, which I know sounds like a cop-out, but it generally is true. There's no one hard, fast rule. But the more you can be moving, the more you have in B, and the less, like, you want to reduce, certainly want to reduce C and D to the absolute maximum amount you can. You're probably always going to have some of those and some of A, but you want to be like, take stock of where you are now. And if you go through the process to list out your tasks, see where you're really at. And then set benchmarks for yourself to improve that over the course of the next month. You can set a benchmark each month for gradual improvement and see where you're at 3 months from now, 6 months from now. Does that help you?
Practice to categorize like what, like A, B, C, or D. And I don't know if you mentioned that, but things on your to-do list, like go through and say like, this is a B, this is a C, and then kind of like list out how you're going to do that?
Yeah, I did touch on that. You want to look at everything that you have to do, and you want to start with your goals. What are my big goals? Break that down. Here's everything I need to do on a weekly, daily, monthly basis to get there. And then add in all the other things, add the other things to the list that you just have to do. Like there are certain things like, depending on your business, maybe it makes sense for you to be running payroll or reviewing the financials, paying bills. Again, some of that needs to be outsourced at a certain point, but reviewing the financials is always important. So
Right.
that is, so all the other, there's always going to be meetings that you have, like they're not optional. So if you list all of those and then rank them, I think you'll see pretty clearly what are some of the things that you're doing just because you're in the habit of doing them that are not helping you get toward the goal. Those you want to start to either get rid of altogether or delegate them or outsource them. So for a lot of my business owners, they're doing their own bookkeeping. And 9 times out of 10, I recommend we take that off their plate, because somebody out there can do it better and for less money. And it's not, when the owner is doing it, it's an opportunity cost. What could they be doing in that time that would allow them to be more effective and to generate revenue or profit versus doing their books? Did that answer? I feel like I got.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Great. I know we are at time, and I apologize. I had to jump over to my phone because my computer died.
Oh, no.
But Angie, thank you so much. That was super helpful. Felicia, thank you. And thank you to HAYVN for hosting us. This was fantastic. I hope everybody got some nuggets. What I'm going to do is email out the slide deck as well as some of our toolkits to everybody that registered. And then if you are watching this on a recording, you can email me, Stephanie@cultivateadvisors.com, and I will get those resources over to you as well.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. It's always good to sit and think about this at lunchtime.
Put some intentionality around it.
Yeah. I changed my screensaver. Figured that out. Good. Okay.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Angie. Thank you, everybody.
Great,
Have a great day.
Bye.
Seeing everybody. Bye.